Hey everyone. You ever look back at your family and wonder if some things are just, in your genes?
It's a fascinating question, right?
Totally. So today we are diving deep into that question specifically. Are depression and anxiety hereditary?
Ooh, deep dive.
You sent in this WebMD article, so we were going to break it down.
Awesome.
It's a question I've been thinking about a lot lately, so perfect timing.
Yeah, it really gets to the heart of who we are, that nature versus nurture thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So what can we learn? I feel like understanding this stuff can be really empowering.
absolutely. And right off the bat, the article points out that while genetics can play a role, it's not like a guaranteed destiny.
Okay, so it's not like, oh, it's in my genes, so it's a life sentence.
No, not at all. Think of it this way. You might have a gene that makes you predisposed to being tall,
Okay, yeah.
but if you don't get the proper nutrition, you might not reach your full height potential.
Right, makes sense. So it's not a guarantee. But how do scientists even figure this out? How do they know if something like depression or anxiety has a genetic component at all?
Well, one of the main ways they study this is through twin studies.
Oh, okay.
So they compare identical twins who share 100% of their genes with fraternal twins who share, around 50%.
Gotcha, gotcha.
And what they found is pretty interesting.
I'm all ears. I love this kind of stuff.
Well, researchers have found that identical twins are way more likely to both have anxiety or depression compared to fraternal twins,
Oh, wow.
which suggests that genes definitely are in the mix.
Okay, that makes sense. But if it's genetic, shouldn't there be a specific gene for, anxiety or depression, like one they can just point to?
You'd think so, right? Like an on-off
Oh,
switch.
exactly.
But unfortunately, it's much more complex than that. Even with tons of research, no single gene has been found.
Oh, so it's not like that at all.
Nope. Seems to be a combo of multiple genes all interacting with each other.
Oh, so it's really complicated then.
Yeah, makes it really tough to figure out.
Wow. But it gets even more interesting, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because new research is showing that what we experience can actually change how our genes work.
Wait, so you're telling me what happens to us can change our DNA?
Well, not the DNA sequence itself, but it changes how those genes express themselves.
Okay, I'm not sure I totally follow.
Think of it like this. You have a book, that's your DNA, right?
Gotcha.
But how you read and interpret that book can change depending on, well, your experiences.
Okay, yeah, I get that. So it's not just nature or our nurture. It's like this back and forth.
You got it. It's this intricate dance between the two.
Wow. So this is why knowing your family history is so important, even if it doesn't dictate your future. Right.
Exactly. The article also talks about how age plays a role too.
Oh, yeah. What was that about? How does age factor into whether it's genetic?
Well, the thinking is that if a family member has depression or anxiety before the age of 20, the chances of it being hereditary are probably higher.
Hmm. So, if someone in my family had depression when they were 16, that might mean I'm more predisposed to it.
Possibly. But remember, predisposed isn't the same as guaranteed.
Right, right. It's just like a nudge, not destiny.
Exactly. It's like maybe you're a little more sensitive to those things, but depression or anxiety can still have a hereditary component even if it pops up after 20.
So even if my parents or grandparents didn't experience it till they were older, there could still be a genetic link.
There could be. But then it's usually more intertwined with like big life events,
Mm.
or long-term stress, things like that.
So it's those things are the trigger.
Yeah, exactly. But that underlying genetic predisposition might make someone more susceptible to, developing depression or anxiety in response to those tries.
Wow, so many layers to this. Makes me think about my own family history in a new light.
Right.
But what about how closely related someone is? Does that matter?
Oh, absolutely. The closer the relative, the stronger the potential link.
Okay, so parents and siblings are more significant than a, say, distant cousin.
Exactly. Parents, siblings, and twins especially, they share a higher percentage of genes.
Right, makes sense. So a distant relative having it isn't as big of a deal.
Not necessarily, no. It's all about how much genetic material is shared.
This is so helpful, honestly. Makes me want to go dig into my family tree. But with all this talk about genes and potential risks, it feels even more important to be able to, recognize the signs of depression and anxiety early on.
100% agree. Being aware of the symptoms can make a huge difference, and the WebMD article does a good job of listing them out.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that feeling down sometimes is normal, but clinical depression is a whole other ballgame.
Right. Occasional sadness is part of life, but it's important to be able to tell the difference.
So let's get into those warning signs. What should we be looking out for with depression?
Well, the article highlights feelings of hopelessness, lack of energy,
Hmm.
increased irritability or anger, sudden weight changes, loss of interest in things you used to enjoy, feeling guilty a lot, maybe engaging in reckless behavior, having trouble concentrating,
Right.
and experiencing these things for at least 2 weeks straight. That's a big one.
That's a lot to keep in mind. What about anxiety? Any red flags there?
Common symptoms can include excessive nervousness or worry, sudden feelings of panic,
Okay.
a racing heart, rapid breathing, having trouble sleeping, stomach problems, and avoiding situations that trigger your anxiety.
Wow, some of those sound like things we all deal with sometimes.
Yeah.
So how do you know when it's more serious?
That's such a great question. And to be honest, it's always a good idea to talk to a doctor or therapist if you're worried.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry, right?
Exactly. They can help you figure out if it's just normal ups and downs or something more.
Really good advice. And the good news is, even if you do have a family history of these things, there's a ton you can do to proactively protect your mental health. The article talks about that too.
Right.
So what can we do to take control?
Well, one of the biggest things you can do is focus on building up your mental well-being even before there's a crisis.
So preventative measures.
Exactly. Like getting a mental health checkup even if you feel okay.
I love that. Like going to the dentist even though your teeth don't hurt.
Yes. Mental fitness is just as important as physical fitness. And one of the key strategies the article mentions is finding a therapist and learning some coping mechanisms before you're in the middle of a crisis.
Oh, that's so smart. Like having a mental health toolbox all ready to go before you need it.
Exactly. Being proactive instead of reactive.
But how do you even find the right therapist? That can feel overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. That's actually something the article doesn't go into detail on, but your primary care doctor can often give you some referrals.
Oh, right. They can hook you up with therapists who focus on like anxiety and depression and things like that.
Exactly. And it's super important to find someone who you feel comfortable with. Don't be afraid to try a few different therapists until you find a good fit.
Totally agree. Feeling understood and supported is so important.
Speaking of feeling good, remember how we were talking about the link between nutrition and mental health? I think that's a great place to start taking those proactive steps.
Oh, yeah. I was so fascinated by that part of the article. And talk about omega-3s, B vitamins, and vitamin D as being crucial for a healthy brain.
Right.
But I got to be honest, I don't really know what they do or how to make sure I'm getting enough.
Well, let's break it down. Omega-3 fatty acids are super important for the structure and function of our brains.
Okay.
They help build and maintain those brain cells, and they play a role in regulating mood. Think of them as like the building blocks for a happy brain.
I like that. Building blocks for a happy brain. So where can we find these omega-3s?
Fatty fish like salmon, tuna, sardines, those are your best bets.
Okay.
But there are plant-based options too, like flax seeds and chia seeds if you're not a big fish person.
Ooh, I love putting flaxseed in my smoothies.
Mm.
Now, what about B vitamins? What makes them so important?
So B vitamins are super important for neurotransmitter production.
Wait, remind me, what are neurotransmitters again? I don't think I totally grasped that earlier.
Think of them like messengers in your brain, carrying signals from one part to another.
Got it. So B vitamins help those messengers do their thing.
Exactly. And they're involved in producing some key neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which are those feel-good chemicals.
Okay, so B vitamins are important for mood then.
You got it.
Awesome. So where can we get them?
Leafy greens, beans, lentils, whole grains, seeds, nuts, fruits,
Okay.
even animal products like meat and eggs.
So eating a variety of foods is key.
Definitely. And what about vitamin D? Sunshine's a good source.
Yeah, but what if you live somewhere that doesn't get a lot of sun, like Seattle?
Well, you can also get vitamin D from fortified foods, like milk, yogurt, some cereals.
Right.
And of course, there are always supplements if you're really concerned.
That's good to know. The article also mentioned limiting added sugar. How does that fit in with mental health?
So added sugar can cause those energy spikes and crashes, and that can really mess with your mood and make anxiety and depression harder to manage.
Makes sense.
Sticking to the naturally occurring sugars in fruit and whole foods is the way to go.
It's like fueling your brain with the good stuff instead of junk food.
Exactly. You want to give your brain what it needs to thrive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've talked about therapy, nutrition. What else can we do? I'm ready to fill up my mental health toolbox.
Well, the article highlights a few things that we often take for granted. Getting enough sleep, practicing mindfulness, and nurturing healthy relationships.
I know for sure that I feel the effects of not getting enough sleep. Everything just feels harder.
Absolutely. When you're well rested, You're better equipped to handle stress, to regulate your emotions. It's like sleep is a reset button for your brain.
I'm sold. Sleep is definitely going in the toolbox. But mindfulness, what about that? I hear it everywhere, but I'll be honest, it all sounds kind of, out there to me.
Yeah, I get it. It can sound a little mystical, but it's actually quite simple.
Oh,
Mindfulness is about being present in the moment without judgment. It's about noticing your thoughts and feelings